On January 26, 1880, Douglas MacArthur was born at Little Rock's Barracks in the state of Arkansas. MacArthur's entire family was involved in the war, which forced him to be born into the family's tradition. For this reason, he ended up attending the West Texas Military Academy at West Point after the family had moved to San Antonio. Once MacArthur graduated from high school, he attended the United States Military Academy and graduated in 1903. After that, MacArthur became a junior officer at Army Corps of Engineers, led the 42nd Division of France, and became the superintendent of West Point, and also the field marshal in the Philippines. As a marshal in the Philippines, MacArthur served as an aide to his father and participated in the American occupation of Veracruz, Mexico in 1914. Finally, MacArthur returned to the Philippines in 1944 to help from the defeat from Japan.
In the Philippines, before the outbreak of World War II, MacArthur served as military advisor to the Philippine Army and in 1941 was given the duty of commander of the United States Army Forces in the Far East by President Roosevelt. MacArthur was responsible for defending the Philippines from the Japanese invasion in 1941. The destruction of his air force plus the weakness of U.S. Philippine forces compared to the Japanese invaders led to the fall of the Philippines and forced him to retreat to the peninsula of Bataan to continue the fight. In March 1942, MacArthur was ordered to retreat from the Philippines to Australia. He, his family, and a key group of staffers escaped to Australia via PT boat, where MacArthur was made Supreme Commander, Southwest Pacific Area. In a speech, he famously promised to the Philippines, "I shall return." During the next 2 years, MacArthur fought in the Pacific against Japan, and the armies under his command suffered minimal losses thanks to his island-hopping strategy. After 2 years of fighting the Japanese, he fulfilled his promise and liberated the Philippines. After the war, MacArthur successfully ran the U.S. occupation of Japan, rebuilding the nation, turning it into a parliamentary democracy, and forging a better diplomatic relationship between Japan and the U.S.
After World War II, Douglas MacArthur was placed in command for the newly created United Nations forces. During the Korean War, he successfully drove back the North Korean attack. However, he failed to anticipate the attack by the Chinese and was forced to retreat. During the aftermath of his defeat, MacArthur decided to voice his opinions on the war despite President Truman's request for him not to. Truman relieved his command in April 1951. He then returned back to Washington, D.C. and was viewed as a hero by the public, but Truman continued to be openly critical about his actions. He met with President Dwight Eisenhower to devise a plan to stop the Korean War, but his idea was rejected because of his belief to use atomic weapons. He then moved to New York City with his wife and was elected chairman of the board for the Remington Rand. MacArthur devoted most of his time to writing memoirs, but he died in Washington, D.C. on April 5, 1964.
In 1945, at the end of the war, President Harry S. Truman appointed MacArthur Supreme Allied Commander. MacArthur was placed in charge of formal surrender of Tokyo, and for the next 6 years he remained in Japan to command the occupation forces there and to oversee the rebuilding of the country. Douglas was an American general and field marshal of the Philippine Army. He was the chief of staff of the United States Army during the 1930s and played a prominent role in the Pacific Theater during World War II.